Hey, thanks so much for tuning in for another episode of the Lightspeed Lawn Care Podcast. I am so excited today. Once again, we have kicked Robert out of the studio. We love to see him, but I keep forgetting to ask him if he's available for guest interviews. And so today we are sitting down with Caleb Auman. You probably, if you're listening to this podcast, you already know who he is. But Caleb, just on the off chance that anybody listening is not sure who you are, will you give us a little intro?
Absolutely. I'd be happy to. I sure don't want to be so bold that anyone knows who I am. So,
it's a very small podcast.
It's bold to assume that anyone would know me. Yeah, well, I don't know. Well, but my name is Caleb Auman. We have a landscape design build company in beautiful Fairfield County, Ohio, just southeast of Columbus, Ohio. We have some social media stuff. We do a training academy for hardscape construction and some other things like that. So we got a lot going on, but we're cruising along, and it's been an awesome career so far. So thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. I'm flattered.
Yeah, thanks so much for joining us. So last week, what the listeners heard was we talked to someone with kind of a medium-sized maintenance company, talking about kind of the hurdles that they felt they had to overcome to get to 100K in top line revenue. And so as kind of the sequel to that, we want to talk about some of the big hurdles that you encounter from 100, 200 to getting over $1 million. And so when I was looking at who could we talk to about this, I thought Caleb would be an excellent choice to give us just some of the big hurdles, maybe mindset shifts that you have to adopt to be able to move from the six figures into the seven.
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity then. And we've done more wrong than we've done right over the years. Sometimes I feel like, at least in my initial, my first company, I crashed my first company, trying to grow a company and trying to be everything to everyone and trying to do everything myself, essentially. And so that initial growth, getting to 100K by yourself is easy. And I think my buddy Brian Fullerton says that, you can go fast by yourself, but you can go far with a team. And the biggest thing with growing a company or scaling a company past, the six-figure mark, or, well into six figures is your team and your people. And it's the cliche, I feel like, just standard answer, but there's a reason for that. And it is, you have to be willing to let go of the reins and delegate to your people, your staff, to take over projects so you can go out and start procuring more work and growing the company. And so it's a huge mental, depending on your skill set. I mean, if you're a type A, you want to, everything your way is the perfect way and nobody else can do it as good as you. That's a mindset you've got to fix and kind of change your outlook on, because you've got to realize that people can do it, maybe not as good as you, maybe better than you, very possibly, or at least do it good enough that would satisfy the general public for whatever services you're providing. And then you train up to whatever level of competency you want those team members to become to your standards or whatever. But really, still, even that all comes down to, again, hiring people that you trust, that you can train and build a team together to take the company wherever you set goals to be.
Yeah. And I think that mindset of I do the best at everything, or I know the right way to do everything, is a lot of times why guys get into business for themselves. So that was what got you out the door, but it's not what's going to get you all the way to where you want to go.
Absolutely, man. There is a huge thing you have to realize in business of, like, where, what kind of company do you want to create? That's just, it's all about the goal setting. And then, what do you want to go to $1 million? Do you want to go to $10 million? And starting to read and understand what it takes to get there. Our company, our revenue hovers right around a company by any stretch. We're not, kid contractor status anymore either, I would say, by what I would compare us to when I started out, right? We want to grow more. And we were just talking about that a little bit ago, of like what that's going to take to double in size. And a big part of that is going to be, hiring a salesperson / landscape designer and doubling our field production staff. And so that's a huge part of that is learning to trust a salesperson to represent our company and set up, how that's going to look and work, and with their experience to grow, to sell work, not me selling work. That's going to be really weird. I'm not going on a sales call. There's someone else representing the company from that perspective. I don't have any problem with my guys going out and representing the company because they're really good at what they do. I've never had someone go out and represent the company from a sales standpoint. That's going to be weird.
Yeah.
That's going to be a whole nother shift for us. So that'll be a segment of growth for me, releasing that part of the company identity. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Is that kind of, does this feel like the last ladder rung for you on like delegating things where you're like fully managing the company now? That was kind of your last thing on the normal employee plate to give up?
It would be, if I'm understanding the question, correct me and forgive me if I'm not, I would say, yeah, the sales and design end of things would be the last. I like to kind of, and I guess really where we want to keep going with the company is Brittany and I, because my wife owns our company technically, and her and I want to keep being the visionaries of it and driving it where we want it to go. And that's always the case with the owners, no matter what size your company is, that you are the person that's really directing and steering the ship. And that is, as you hire more people, that vision becomes more and more important of deciding what type of work we want to keep doing or not doing, and where do we want to take this thing. And the bigger the company grows, the more time you need to allocate to that, I believe, and into it, and learning what to do and learning, maybe learning on the fly of how to do that, how to be better about that. And that'll be something we're going to be looking at is, what do sales processes look like for someone that just doesn't inherently know, myself as the owner, how to go out and sell a project, or what are standards or standard operating procedures that we should make sure we have in place when we interview for a salesperson to look at that position. So that's going to be a big learning curve for us. I think it'll be interesting, but I've been in business long enough now I think I know that I don't know how to do it. So I need to learn how to do it, learn how to set that up and act with, this other, the salesperson we might hire and like lean on them as to what they think like a good standard operating procedure for a sales process should be as well.
So when you're looking at offboarding a significant chunk of your responsibilities, how do you kind of make sure that you're on a good footing to trust the person who comes in? Like, what do you read various books? Like, what I'm trying to figure out is, I feel like a lot of entrepreneurs come in and they figure out a process that works for them that may be mostly informed just by trial and error. But then when you need to hand it off to someone, you need to know like, this person's competent when they're coming in the door. So how do you get ready to gauge that this person is, the person to fill those shoes?
I think something I really liked the Dave Ramsey approach. One of the things was, we want to, as much as we can, hire from within a framework of people that we already know. Mm-hmm. As best we can. So a lot of the best employees we have or have ever had have been referrals from people that already know them, so they can vouch for them, or they know that person's personality type. As much as we can do that with a salesperson / designer, I want to try to do that. The Dave Ramsey concept here that I alluded to there was like, once we get deeper into discussions and negotiations with that person, if they're outside of our circle of people that we know, I want to meet the family. I'd like to meet the wife or spouse or husband or whatever and go to dinner with them and kind of get a gauge for what that family dynamic is as best we can, and maybe understand their personality a little bit more, know what their hobbies are, their interests are, what their focus in life is on outside of work. Mm-hmm. And just start to really try to, if the person is, super oriented towards serving others outside of work, that would be a good sign, right? They're very involved in their church or their school or their PTO or PTA or band boosters or whatever. Like, that's going to help me start to gauge a little bit of what kind of person they are, I think. Mm-hmm. And so there's all that stuff. And then on top of that, like what work criterion or, credentials, what work credentials they have that correlate hopefully with all their personal skill set that is hopefully like what we're looking for. And start to put those two things together, I guess. So hopefully that's all. That's the theory in my head anyway. So we'll see where that goes.
Yeah. So I know working with maintenance guys to do like hiring for crews, there are red flags that we look for, but I feel like they're maybe a little more obvious than when you're trying to hire someone for like a sales position or something. Like we do Indeed ads for people, and I do the automated phone interviews, and I personally review those. And I can't tell you how many guys I've had disqualify themselves by talking about like getting in fist fights in the workplace and being like, that's how we settle conflict in the workplace. And it's like, nah, man, if I recommend you, I'm opening myself up to liability if you hit someone later. So I don't think that you're going to have a salesperson come in and sell themselves to you as someone who gets in fights in the workplace. What are the red flags that you're looking for, that kind of position?
What I would say is, a couple of things is, the salespeople, especially if you're interviewing salespeople, well, they're really good at sales, hopefully, and they're also going to be then theoretically really good at selling themselves. So that's why, to your point, like why you're going to need to be really good at digging past the layers of that onion, right, to make sure that they have that. Things I would be looking for would be their past work experience and what their opinion of their past employers is. If they couldn't just seem to get along with anybody, it was always the employer's fault, that's a huge red flag to me. If things are always other people's faults and we don't fall on the sword for anything, that right there is a huge red flag to me in any aspect of our company. If people were hiring and it's always so-and-so's fault and I never do anything wrong, or I won't accept that, or I don't have the mental capacity to realize that, I could possibly be wrong in something. Yeah. That would be a huge one for me there, for sure.
Okay. So you guys are like looking at the next level up for the business is starting to delegate sales. What did the path getting here look like? Like what was the last thing that you took off your plate?
Oh, good question. A huge part of it has been, and our business, maybe part of what makes us a little unique in this situation is the fact that we're running a couple other businesses as well at the same time that my wife and I are focusing on. So we have the landscape construction aspect of things, landscape design work, but then we also have a podcast. We have a handful of social media channels that we're trying to grow. We have a thing called the Hardscape Academy. And it's a training platform for building and constructing landscapes and hardscapes. And so we're very pulled, and we're pulled in a lot of directions running that. And so the part of it that we would have more time if we weren't doing those things, we would be able to focus on sales and stuff like that through probably another $1 million worth of work if we wanted to. And so we could probably operate as we were, probably up to about 2 million, I think, if we didn't have those other ventures going at the moment. Mm-hmm. So that, that part being said, that's a little different for us. But ultimately, big part of still freeing up enough time to where even we can be doing what we're doing now. And by the way, we have 3 children that are under 10 years old. So, we're at a very busy time frame in life there, and for the next 10 years, I'm sure. But where we're going with that is a lot of office and administrative stuff, trying to streamline that, and they're hiring out a lot of those services and using, a payroll service, using a time tracking service. We have an accountant that we pay that does remote accounting for us now. And so Brittany's not taking time in the office to do QuickBooks, affiliations and things like that. We're hiring that stuff out so that she can still focus on top tier or, higher level thinking and strategy stuff. And so we started, once we got past 500,000, let's say, we started taking as much stuff off of our internal plates as possible, because Britt and I are not in the field or, producing work hardly at all anymore. We're producing work in other things aside from running the company, but we're really trying to eliminate any of that stuff that we can pay someone else to do so that we can focus on the things that keep the company, rolling ahead, more big picture things. Yeah. So that was that tier ahead of this. That's a good question.
At what point were you and Brittany entirely out of the field?
Entirely out was probably at least 5 years ago. Okay. If not, probably a little bit longer than that. It's always been my goal as a business owner always has been my business goal owner to not be the one person reliant on field production, that if I get sick or hurt, that production stops. Mm-hmm. I've always had that mantra, and always had the goal of building a company that was reliable and able to support a family and my team's family and all that stuff. And so like when I was young, young, like 20 and 16 and maybe even mid 20s, some of my buddies and peers at that time were running companies, and I'd run into them, every so often. And they'd say, hey man, how's business? Whatever. Oh, well, I quit. I needed to get a real job, or I needed to, it just wasn't cutting it. And my wife told me I needed to get a real job because they were running a mowing company or something at the time. And it never sat right with me. It always bugged me. It's like, well, we do have real jobs. What are you talking about? Like, we're running companies, man. But they didn't see it as that. That was always fuel in my fire of like, I'm going to make a company that will support a family and will support my guys' families. We do have real jobs. What are you talking about? That just never sat right with me. It's like, it was such a disrespect for our own industry of lawn care. It was just mowing grass. No, we can make a living doing this stuff. And now, granted, we pivoted out of that into the industry after a few years, still in the green industry, but just into landscaping and landscape construction. And livings can be made in lawn care still. I know guys that do it all the time. But that was always a big driving force for me. So to answer your question the long way around, I reckon, I don't know. Man, so off topic, it doesn't even count anymore, Cody. I'm sorry. But, it was always the goal to remove myself from the field, or to where I wasn't in our overhead structure, wasn't reliant on me being in the field. And that was part of like something I would say I've really been bad at a lot of things, but one of them has been, I think I've always been pretty good at releasing my guys into the field to giving them enough rope to, to climb or to hang themselves with or learn from, and do that. So I hope that at least is something I can keep going forward, of just being willing to accept that not everything's going to be perfect all the time. And we're just going to pivot and adjust and fix things as we can. And if things are messed up, and like Steve Jobs said, decisions will be made. And if you empower your team to make good decisions or make decisions, period, it's going to be better. Even if they make a bad decision, it's better that they made a decision in the field instead of him hauling around or waiting to hear from you or get direction from you. They made a decision, they executed on it, and kept moving forward. Mm-hmm. And if we got to go back a step, but we went forward 2 steps, just because the decision got made, so be it. So I've always tried to make sure my guys know, like, you have company credit cards, you have, the authority to make a decision in the field. If you need to do something, do it. And if you can't get a hold of me for it, make a decision and do it. And just, if you're wrong, that's okay. I'm not going to go crazy. I'm not going to worry about it. We're going to learn together.
Yeah. And then I think one final question here. What do you feel like was your biggest mistake on the road to 1 million in top line?
Absolutely, without failure. And that wasn't without a doubt. I mean, in my first, 10 years in business, from when I was like 16 to essentially almost 26, maybe 28, somewhere in there, I just did not pay attention to my financials at all, hardly. My first 5 years, I kind of did. And then I got just sidetracked, just trying to grow like crazy. And I never even got even close to my $1 million goal, not even close. But I was just, again, work 12 hours in the field, try to sell some work at night, try to bid some work, maybe pay my taxes. Generally, I didn't. I got super behind in taxes, all this crazy crap. I made the biggest tax mess, which I realized after talking to so many people through your social media stuff that I'm not alone in that. It's a huge, and my accountant, even when he came in, where I finally turned over my finances to someone that could straighten it out, which took years. They're like, dude, we have these situations all the time, guys that just get behind on taxes. And that was really my biggest thing. I just really screwed up, not paying, not filing, not turning in tax filings for quarterlies and payroll and just all this crap. I made a hell of a mess. It was awful. And so not paying attention to my financials. And then you get to a point too, where you get so scared, you just start trying to run away from everything or ignore it. And I beg you, don't do that, because they all those agencies will find you eventually. They'll get you, and they'll say, "Hey, you owe us money from years ago. How are we going to fix this?" And their options to fix things aren't as always great as whatever. So get good help if you're in that kind of mess. And there's a lot of people out there, and that's why I share it, because it's pretty embarrassing to admit that you were so stupid and so ignorant to not pay taxes for years because you were just scared, or you didn't know how, or you're having a bad quarter and you're just like, you know what, next month, next quarter, we'll do better. We'll get caught up on our last taxes. And meanwhile, you're still selling work 12 hours a day. And last thing you want to do is profit and losses and all that crap. And so for the owner operators out there wearing all those hats, you have to take a day a week or whatever and be diligent of actually running the company. Otherwise, just go get a job working for somebody else, because you can have You can find a good company to go work for and be their lead person, their right-hand man, and not have to deal with all the business crap and still get the accolades of building cool projects and stuff or doing whatever. You cannot be a technician and run a successful business. You have to be a businessman. And that's the number one thing. Be a businessman.
Well, yeah, I appreciate you being open about that, because I know that it's something that stresses me out a lot. First year in business, hired a CPA to take care of filing the taxes and everything, because I just knew that like I already dreaded doing my personal return. I don't need like the added complication of doing that. And then one thing I wanted to point people toward, I've recommended this book before, but it was really helpful to me, is Clockwork by Mike Michalowicz.
Oh, yeah, sure.
So if you've read like Profit First, it is a very similar model, except for time management, where you just start with like, you pull up to the office or the shop in the morning and you take 5 minutes before you go inside and everyone presents their fire of the day that needs to be put out. You take that 5 minutes to work on some things that you don't normally get done, put the things that you don't want to do ahead of the things that you actually enjoy doing, so that they get done.
That's so good. And dude, you are a genius level business person compared to me, 10 years ago, knowing just to hire out your weaknesses. And that's a good point right there. Hire out your weaknesses. If you suck at it, get somebody else to do it. Because the thing is, your clients, and when you're starting a business, I get it, man. You got no money, cash flow is nightmare, getting paid, all that. Dude, I have been there so often, and we still struggle with that, man. But like, I so get it. But as soon as you can and as fast as you can, hire out the services and the things you dread doing. Exactly that. The things you dread doing, get somebody else to do it. That is their cup. That is their cup of tea, right? Like, your clients aren't asking you to file their taxes, are they? No, they're asking you to perform, the best lawn mowing, the best, hardscape construction work, the best audio, the best marketing. That's what they're coming to you for. They're not coming to you, hey man, can you, change my oil and rotate my tires? No. So hire the people that are proficient in what you don't, enjoy. There's nothing CPAs love more than crunching numbers, those weirdos. Turn that over to them and let them crush that, and you go crush you. You know what I mean? Like, that. And so, dude, your genius level there, I got to hand it to you. So good job.
I just don't want to go to jail. That's my main thing. I never want to go to jail. I don't want an IRS agent so I knew immediately I need to pay somebody to do this, because that is the kind of thing I will procrastinate into oblivion.
I did that, and I did, man. And you've really got to be deep in the hole of where someone physically shows up bad. I mean, they go after the big, just so, this is not to not scare people out there, but I mean, they will send you some letters that will scare you to death and send you. If you don't believe in Jesus, you might talk to the guy, some of these letters they send you, man, because it is scary stuff, man. It is scary stuff. So yeah, get your stuff in order, because it's only going to get worse. It's never going to get better if you ignore that stuff. I can promise you that. Death and taxes, the only two sureties, right?
Well, Caleb, thank you so much for coming on the show today. If people are looking for you online, where can they find you?
The Auman Landscape on Instagram. It's actually Auman Landscape LLC on Instagram. We have YouTube, TikTok, all that stuff. We're all there, and be happy to see if you come find us. Yeah. And we'll have links in the show notes here where you can find Caleb online. And again, man, thanks so much for hopping on with me. I appreciate it. Dude, that was fun. Thank you. I'm flattered to be on. Thank you again. You're welcome.